Sergeant Mason's boots echoed hollowly as he stepped through the fractured corridor of the freighter, the metal groaning like a giant beast with a bad headache. "Great," Mason muttered. "Just what I needed. Getting lost in a spaceship that's probably older than my great-uncle's war stories." He squinted at the blinking panel beside the doorway. The flickering readout was in some alien script he barely recognized, looking like a drunken calligraphy contest. "Guess I'll just have to wing it." A soft noise caught his attention, something like a stifled cough or maybe a hiccup. Mason crouched behind a rusted crate and peeked around the corner. A small figure huddled there, eyes wide and shimmering with something he couldn't quite place. She looked almost human, but with long, delicate ears curling past her hair, like someone had decided to give her a bit of a fairy tale twist. Mason's usual battlefield nerves were replaced with confusion. "Hey there," he said softly. "You lost, kid?" She stared, then slowly nodded. Mason scratched his head, half expecting a laser beam or a shout for backup. Instead, the girl's lips parted and out came a squeaky voice. "Chocolate." Mason blinked. "Chocolate? Well, lucky you, I have the finest ration bar in all the quadrant," he said, pulling out a slightly squished chocolate bar from his pocket. He held it out with a smile that probably looked more desperate than friendly. The girl's eyes lit up, and she edged closer, snatching the bar and taking a tiny bite. She said. "Earth sweet." Mason laughed, the sound echoing oddly in the metal shell. "Yeah, Earth's got the good stuff. Beats alien space rations that taste like recycled engine grease." He lowered his weapon, realizing the kid wasn't a threat but more like a lost puppy from another galaxy. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Lura." "Lura, huh? Nice name. You planning to hitch a ride home, or are you just sightseeing?" Mason teased, half joking, but the truth was he had no idea what to do with her. Lura's ears twitched and she looked around nervously. "Home, far, bad things need go." Mason raised an eyebrow. "Bad things? Like bad guys with giant laser swords or just space bureaucracy?" Lura tilted her head, then giggled, a clear, ringing sound that filled the stale air. "Both." The humor broke the tension, and Mason felt a strange warmth spread through him. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was the reluctant babysitter for an alien princess lost in a scrapyard of starships. "All right, Princess Lura," he said with mock seriousness. "Let's find your throne room before the royal advisors send out a search party with plasma rifles." Lura smiled and stood up, brushing dust off her patched tunic. Mason followed, scanning the dim corridor. "First thing, we get you somewhere safe. Then maybe we'll figure out how to get you home without anyone shooting at us." As they moved deeper into the ship, Mason noticed how the girl studied everything. The flashing consoles, the flickering lights, the faded insignias on the bulkheads. "You know, this place used to be a luxury cruiser. Now it looks like someone threw a space party and forgot to clean up," he joked. Lura giggled again, her long ears twitching in amusement. "Space party? Good, you funny." Mason shrugged. "That's my job, to keep things light when the universe wants to crush you." They reached a sealed hatch, its control panel flickering weakly. Mason pressed his palm against the scanner, waiting. The hatch hissed open, revealing a small room with a viewport looking out into the endless stars. Lura pressed her hands against the glass, her eyes reflecting distant suns. "Home," she whispered. Mason stood beside her, the weight of the mission settling like gravity in his chest. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a guardian, a bridge between worlds. And somewhere beyond those stars, a mother waited, hoping for the return of her lost daughter. "Well," Mason said, breaking the silence, "let's not keep your mom waiting. Though I have to warn you, I'm better with a blaster than with family reunions." Lura turned to him, a mischievous smile tugging at her lips. "Maybe I teach you." Mason laughed, a sound of hope and chaos tangled together. In the vast silence of space, two unlikely allies began a journey that would test courage, loyalty, and the strange, powerful ties of family. Mason sat behind the wheel of the battered cargo hauler, its creaky controls groaning as if protesting the sudden urgency of their escape. "All right, Lura," he said, fiddling with a switch that sputtered and sparked. "Hold on tight. This ride's about as smooth as a grav roller on a rock field." Lura clutched the armrest, her long ears twitching with a mix of excitement and nerves. "Faster than Spider on hyperdrive?" she asked, wide-eyed. Mason chuckled. "More like a drunk spider with a hangover, but hey, speed is relative." The ship lurched forward, leaving the derelict freighter far behind in a cloud of space dust and old regrets. Mason squinted at the navigation console, which blinked indecipherably in an alien script that might as well have been a Sudoku puzzle written by a hyperintelligent octopus. "I swear this nav system was designed by someone who hates pilots," he grumbled. Lura leaned over his shoulder, tapping a few glowing symbols with a fingertip. "Try this," she suggested, voice playful. Mason raised an eyebrow. "You speak ancient space tech now. Great, next you'll be telling me you can hack the galaxy." Lura grinned, maybe. Their makeshift partnership was quickly tested when the ship's thrusters sputtered mid-jump, casting them adrift in a pocket of dark space littered with glowing asteroids. "Fantastic," Mason sighed, toggling switches and hitting buttons at random. "Note to self, must attend how not to get stranded 101. Lura peered out the viewport, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. "Not stranded," she said firmly, "just temporarily misplaced." Suddenly the ship's alarm blared, a high-pitched shriek that sent Mason ducking behind the console. "Is that a warning or a death sentence?" he asked. Lura poked the control panel and a holographic map flickered to life, showing a fleet of sleek silver ships closing in fast. "They're coming," she said. Mason rubbed his temples. "Ah, great. Just what I needed. A welcome party with plasma rifles and formal accusations." As the alien vessels surrounded them, Mason flipped on the external comms. "This is Sergeant Mason, and this little one is a guest of mine," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "We come in peace, mostly." A stern voice crackled back, "Identify the child, state your purpose." Mason swallowed. "She's, new to the neighborhood, lost her way. I'm the designated babysitter until the authorities arrive." Lura elbowed him gently. "Less jokes, more explaining." The flagship's hangar bay doors opened with a metallic roar, and Mason's cargo hauler was pulled inside like a captured bug. "At least they're hospitable," Mason muttered as they were escorted into a grand chamber bathed in soft blue light. There, standing tall and regal, was the alien queen herself, her long ears draped elegantly over her shoulders, her eyes shimmering with the weight of unspoken grief. Lura's breath caught. "Mother," she whispered. The queen's face softened, a fragile smile breaking through years of sorrow. Mason cleared his throat awkwardly. "Looks like the prodigal daughter made it home, huh?" The queen's advisors eyed Mason suspiciously, but he met their stares with a grin. "Don't worry, I'm harmless. Mostly." Lura slipped from Mason's side, running into her mother's arms, the reunion charged with emotion so raw it almost short-circuited the chamber's delicate holograms. Mason watched quietly, feeling like an outsider in a world of ancient traditions and star-born royalty. Yet, beneath the formalities and wary glances, something simple and profound was happening. A family, reunited against impossible odds. He cracked a smile, whispering to himself, "Guess I'm not just a soldier after all, maybe a diplomat or a babysitter with a blaster." The queen turned to him, eyes glistening. "Thank you," she said softly. Mason nodded, a lump rising in his throat. "Just doing my job." But in that moment he realized that sometimes the hardest missions were the ones that didn't involve gunfire or glory. Sometimes they were about giving hope back to those who needed it most. The council chamber hummed softly as Mason stood awkwardly by a crystalline console, the alien advisors eyeing him like a particularly confused artifact. "So," Mason began, shifting his weight, "you want to make sure I'm not some intergalactic kidnapper or worse, a terrible cook who can't boil space noodles." One elder, his ears long and tipped with silver, raised a brow. "Explain yourself, human. Why did you bring the lost princess back alone?" Mason scratched his head. "Well, first, I didn't exactly have a squadron handy, and second, she threatened to tell my mom if I didn't. Can't have that." A few of the council members exchanged looks that might have been amusement or disbelief. Lura stood by the queen's side, fidgeting with the hem of her tunic, her long ears flicking nervously. "She funny," Lura whispered, then louder. "Human tries humor. It is peculiar." The queen gave Mason a grateful glance. "He speaks truth. Our daughter disappeared into the void's edge and no one dared venture there." Mason nodded. "That's my department, daredevils and idiots, mostly the latter." A young advisor leaned forward, eyes sharp as laser drills. "Why did you not seek aid from your own fleet?" "Because," Mason said, lowering his voice like sharing a secret, "I figured if I called for backup, we'd all be blasted to stardust by the time they arrived. Plus, I like a good solo challenge. Mostly because I hate paperwork." The queen smiled faintly. "Your courage is commendable, Sergeant Mason, but your presence here complicates matters. Our laws forbid non-royals from direct contact with the princess without council oversight." Mason grinned. "So, I guess I'm under house arrest with alien hospitality." He looked around. "Any chance you've got a nice cage with decent room service?" Before the queen could respond, Lura tugged Mason's sleeve. "Can you teach me about Earth? Your humor is strange but good." Mason's surprise was genuine. "You want to learn Earth jokes? You're braver than I thought." Their exchange was interrupted by a sudden alert. A holographic display flickered to life, revealing a distant star system flaring with unusual activity. "Pirates," murmured one advisor, "near the trade routes. If they catch wind of the princess's return, chaos could erupt." Mason folded his arms. "Sounds like a job for the babysitter and intergalactic firefighter. You know me." The queen nodded. "You have earned our trust. We offer you the rank of envoy to aid in safeguarding Lura and restoring peace." Mason blinked. "Envoy, fancy. Does that come with a uniform that doesn't itch?" The queen laughed softly, a sound like wind over alien dunes. "You will need to learn our ways and speak for our people." Mason glanced at Lura, who grinned back with bright eyes. "Looks like my life just got a lot more complicated." That night, as the twin moons of Thalara cast pale light over the palace, Mason found himself teaching Lura Earth jokes while she taught him phrases in her language. "Why did the star go to school?" Mason asked. "Why?" "Because it wanted to be a little brighter." Lura giggled, her long ears flicking with delight. Mason laughed, feeling an unexpected warmth. "In the vast cold—" "Indeed," the queen said softly, her eyes steady but shadowed with worry. "The pirate factions have increased their incursions. They are no longer interested in trade routes alone. They seek to disrupt the stability our realm has maintained." She gestured to a rotating 3D model of the sector, where clusters of ships darted like angry fireflies. "If they discover Lura's return, the unrest could spiral into full-scale war." Mason leaned forward, tapping a blinking point on the map. "So, what's the plan? More space battles? Because, let me tell you, my last encounter with pirates involved a malfunctioning grav thruster and a lot of yelling." A counselor with shimmering silver ear tips interjected. "We propose a diplomatic convoy, with Mason as the envoy. Your knowledge of human tactics and unexpected humor may provide an advantage." Mason raised an eyebrow. "Diplomatic convoy, huh? So basically, we're escorting a royal VIP through a gauntlet of space bandits who don't care for peace treaties." Lura smiled mischievously. "Sounds like you're kind of fun." Mason grinned. "You bet it is. Nothing like flying into danger with a princess and a death wish." As preparations began, Mason found himself awkwardly suited up in a sleek envoy uniform that itched in all the wrong places. "I swear whoever designed this never battled a laser cannon," he grumbled, pulling at the collar. Lura laughed, her ears twitching with amusement. "You look like a shiny tin can." Their ship, the Starwind, was a masterpiece of alien and human engineering, a fusion of sleek alloys and thrusters that hummed softly like a purring beast. As they boarded, Mason couldn't resist poking the console. Any chance this baby comes with an eject button labeled "Run like heck." The pilot, a wiry engineer with twinkling eyes, smirked. "Only if you promise to press it before we get shot at." The journey through the pirate-infested sector was tense, but peppered with moments of absurdity. Mason found himself explaining human snacks to Lura, who was fascinated by the concept of potato chips. "Crunchy star dust," she called them, munching happily. Suddenly, the ship's sensors blared. A squadron of pirate drones darted toward them like metallic hornets. Mason grabbed the comms mic, deadpan. "Greetings, unwanted guests. You've just entered the express lane to a blast zone. Please keep your arms and legs inside the ship at all times." Lura giggled. "Your bravado is impressive." Mason winked. "Years of practice, now watch this." He tapped controls, unleashing a dazzling display of defensive lasers that danced across the void, taking out drones one by one. Who says diplomacy can't have fireworks? Hours later, as the convoy approached the royal system, the Queen's fleet shimmered in the distance, a silver tide ready to welcome their lost daughter. Mason sat beside Lura, both watching the stars blur past. "You ever think about what comes next?" Mason asked quietly. Lura smiled softly. "I think home is not just a place, it is where people fight to keep you safe." Mason nodded, feeling the weight and warmth of her words. In a universe full of dangers and uncertainty, some bonds transcended species and star systems. As the convoy entered the system, Mason readied himself, not just for battle or politics, but for the future neither of them could yet imagine. Mason stood on the observation deck of the Queen's flagship, watching the nebula's swirling colors paint the void outside. Lura, now confidently seated beside her mother, waved at him with a mischievous grin. "You're not getting rid of me that easily, human." Mason chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "I was kind of hoping for a quiet retirement, but I guess the universe has other plans." The Queen approached, her long ears catching the faint hum of the ship's engines. "Sergeant Mason, your service has gone beyond the call of duty. You return not only my daughter but hope to my people." Mason shrugged, a smile tugging at his lips. "I just followed orders and the occasional chocolate bar bribe." Lura rolled her eyes playfully. "You're impossible." Mason grinned. "That's what they tell me back on Earth." Suddenly, the ship's alert chimed softly. A message flickered on the hollow console. "The pirate threat has been quelled." The combined fleets had successfully negotiated a ceasefire, thanks in part to Mason's unexpected diplomacy and humor during the convoy. "Looks like your joke saved more than just my sanity," Lura teased. Mason nodded, feeling a strange pride swell. "Turns out, laughter's the best kind of weapon." As the Queen prepared to resume her duties, she turned to Mason. "Will you stay, envoy? Help us rebuild the bridges between our worlds." Mason glanced at Lura, who gave a thumbs up, her long ears twitching with approval. "You know what? I think I just might. Somebody's got to teach you all Earth jokes." He pulled a small, hand-carved Starwood figurine from his pocket, Lura's gift, and held it out. "For the best space partner I ever had." Lura accepted it with a smile. "And for the bravest human I ever met." The three of them stood together, a human soldier, an alien princess, and her queen, united by courage, humor, and the unbreakable bonds of family. In the vastness of space, they had found something rare: belonging. Mason's journey had begun as a mission, but it had become a testament to the strength found in kindness, the power of laughter, and the truth that sometimes the greatest victories are those of the heart.